Have you ever put something in the oven, checked the clock, and thought, I've got plenty of time before I need to go get that? Then, the next thing you know, the whole place smells burnt and you're wondering if the oven is on fire? That's how I think of Russell Wilson's past few seasons. The whole let Russ cook thing started in 2019 and then hit its peak towards the beginning of the 2020 season. The Seahawks won 11 games, Russ achieved All-Pro honors, and articles were coming out wondering how it could be that Wilson had never received an MVP vote. Then, after a down year and injury in 21, he was shipped off to Denver for a haul including 3 players and 5 draft picks. The Broncos were happy to have their chef, but they quickly realized they didn't love what he was cooking anymore. After 2 disaster seasons, which saw Wilson throwing for his worst completion percentage in a season, the fewest touchdown passes in a season, his lowest yards per game total since his rookie year, and 100 sacks combined, which leads the league over that span, the Broncos have opted to release him and take on an NFL record $85 million in dead money.
Broncos country, let's ride, baby.
So, is Russ fully cooked? I actually don't think so, but I get that it's easy to feel that way. His 22 season completely tanked his stock. It's hard to save face when you sign a massive contract, say you're expecting to stay in Denver for a decade to win 3 or 4 Super Bowls, and your head coach fangirls you at your introductory press conference, all for you to play like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league.
Come on, y'all, Russell Wilson. Holy very exciting.
And while his numbers this past season looked better, there was always something that didn't feel totally trustworthy about them. He improved his completion rate through 10 more touchdowns and went from 27th to 8th in passer rating, but even during the Broncos' 5-game win streak in the middle of the season, the success seemed more attributed to turnover luck than Wilson leading the franchise. In that 5-game span, they had 16 takeaways and only 3 turnovers, compared to only 10 takeaways and 19 turnovers over their other 12 games. Their offense scored a little more, but these were not extraordinary performances by that unit. Hell, Russ and the Broncos beat the Chiefs in Week 8, where Wilson threw for 114 yards on 12 for 19 passing, and yet threw 3 touchdowns. One of the odder parts of Wilson's 2023 season from a statistical standpoint to me was how his average time to throw crept up to over 3 seconds while his average depth of target was just 7.8 yards, the lowest in his career by a pretty wide margin. Typically, you'd associate higher times to throw with more downfield passing, since that quarterback may be waiting for deeper routes to open up, but it seemed the opposite with Wilson. The other part of this time to throw puzzle was around Russ's splits when he throws the ball in under 2.5 seconds versus over 2.5 seconds. According to PFF, Wilson graded out as one of the best passers in under 2.5 seconds, but he only threw in these situations 38.8% of the time. And while it's true that part of Russ's style extends plays by nature, even guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson saw over 40% of their throws come in the quick game. Instead, Wilson's under 2.5 seconds to throw percentage was more aligned with guys like Justin Fields, Will Levis, and Tommy DeVito. See, a decent amount of Russ's over 2.5 second throws look more like this one against Green Bay. He takes the snap, feels the pressure early, and tries to improvise but just ends up going backward and making the pass harder to make. It would seem that his better grades on the quicker passes were more due to selection bias than him actually being better at throwing in these types of situations. You'd rather see him step up a bit, or just hang tough in the pocket for an extra split second to give Judy a chance to get open. But his size limits how exactly he can play in the pocket. That's always been a thing for Russ, but now with a little less quickness combined with his height, it seems like everything has gotten harder for him all at once. And don't get me wrong, he can still make some magic happen like he did here against the Bills, and he also still has a pretty good arm. Whether it's something more schemed up and out of his hands early like this play against the Packers, or a bomb off play action like he does here against the Chiefs, and I mean, this one is a beauty. Rather, Wilson's biggest issues come from processing and using his eyes to manipulate defenders while he's in the pocket. If he wants to take another step in his career as a 36-year-old QB who fancies himself a Tom Brady type, These are both areas he'll need to improve quickly. Here's an example where Wilson gets some extra time to scan the field, but can't seem to find his tight end in the seam with an opportunity for a touchdown. The Chiefs come out with a single high safety and a few DBs pressing up at the line. After the motion, we see the KC linebackers communicate and then send Willie Gay to guard over top of the tight end, likely signaling man coverage. Troutman is the guy running the seam, and although he doesn't get the cleanest release, he still gets his defender on the outside of him, which is exactly what he needed. At the same time, the deep safety starts cheating to the right side while the linebackers turn their bodies away from the tight end. There's an opening for this touchdown throw. Troutman has the leverage, and Wilson has the time, but he takes off and scrambles for 5 yards instead, seemingly never seeing it. And lastly, this instance against Houston shows how his lack of eye movement can make his passes tougher. Similar to the deep ball I showed earlier against Green Bay, Russ knows he's going to try and hit Sutton here when he sees there's a corner pressed up against him. Sutton is still pretty well covered here, and the ball Wilson throws could have been better, but it's made all the more difficult with the safety coming in from the middle to help break it up. The safety gets a jump on the ball before Wilson has even finished his drop back. We can see on the other angle how the stripe of Wilson's helmet is facing his receiver the whole way. Wilson needs to keep the safety going middle by manipulating him with his eyes until the moment he's ready to release the ball. Otherwise, these passes become much harder to complete and much more dangerous. At this point in his career, Wilson is fully a game manager quarterback who has a really nice mobility aspect to his game. With how much he was being paid, it was a lot easier to look at his production and dismiss him as fully cooked. That price tag and all the baggage in Denver just made everything so much uglier. But now that a team can pick him up for potentially the league minimum, his cuisine is starting to smell a whole lot more appetizing. He just can't be a focal point of the offense. The thing can't run through Russ. In watching his film, his play reminded me of a washed-up star who gets voted into the All-Star game mostly on reputation. For the most part, he's kind of invisible out there, but randomly he'll bust something out that reminds you of who he was. Although a near impossible feat, I think these past 2 years have humbled Wilson to a certain degree. For a guy whose season statistically confused the hell out of me, I'm excited to see what he does at his next stop. If he can get onto an offense that is built around its skill players, we may see a Russ who just takes what is given to him and can make good when the defense opens up something downfield. It's a far, far fall from what we thought of Wilson before he arrived in Denver, but I don't think his time being a relevant quarterback in the NFL is over. At least not for one more year. Please enjoy this play of Russ getting killed on a jump pass, and then his receiver, after getting tackled, doing the little foot thing like he's a teenage girl in her bedroom talking to her crush, while I tell you to please like this video if you did enjoy it and consider subscribing to the channel so you can catch the next one. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.